Margaret stood frozen in the department store, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. The young saleswoman had just informed her that her credit card had been declined for the third time. She could feel the eyes of other shoppers on her, their judgment heavy in the air. "I'm so sorry," Margaret whispered, her voice trembling. "There must be some mistake. Let me try calling the bank." She was 62 years old, recently widowed, and trying to buy a simple dress for her daughter's wedding next month. After 40 years of marriage, she was still learning to navigate finances alone. Her late husband Robert had always handled everything. The saleswoman tapped her foot impatiently. Behind Margaret, a well-dressed couple waited in line. The woman sighed loudly, making no effort to hide her irritation. "Ma'am, if you can't complete the purchase, I need to help the next customer," the saleswoman said, her tone sharp and dismissive. Margaret felt tears welling up. She had been so careful with her budget, saving for months to afford something nice for this special day. Now she stood here, feeling small and foolish. That's when a calm voice spoke from behind her. "Excuse me," said a distinguished man in his late 50s, stepping forward. He wore an expensive leather jacket over a crisp red shirt, his presence commanding yet gentle. "Say I'm her husband. We're here together." Margaret turned to look at him, confused. She had never seen this man before in her life. The stranger, whose name tag read Thomas Hendricks, smiled warmly at her before addressing the saleswoman. "My wife sometimes forgets we have separate accounts. Please put this on my card." He handed over a black credit card without hesitation. "Sir, I don't understand," Margaret began, her voice barely audible. Thomas leaned closer and whispered, "Please, just go along with it. No one should be made to feel this way." The transaction went through instantly. Thomas signed the receipt while Margaret stood there, bewildered and overwhelmed. The saleswoman's entire demeanor had changed, suddenly all smiles and courtesy. As they walked away from the counter, Margaret tried to speak. "Sir, I can't possibly accept this. I don't even know you. Please, let me pay you back somehow." Thomas stopped and turned to face her, his eyes kind and understanding. "Do you know why I did that?" Margaret shook her head, clutching the shopping bag to her chest. 20 years ago, I was where you are now," Thomas said softly. "I had just lost my business, my marriage had fallen apart, and I was trying to buy groceries for my daughter. My card was declined. I had nothing. A stranger paid for my groceries that day and told me to pass it on when I could." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "That act of kindness gave me more than just food. It gave me hope when I had none. It reminded me that people still cared, that I still mattered." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Thomas replied. "But I do want to tell you something. After that day, I rebuilt my life. It took years of hard work, some luck, and a lot of help from good people. Today, I own a chain of department stores across the country. This happens to be one of them." Margaret's eyes widened in shock. Thomas continued, "I come to my stores regularly, not as the owner, but as a customer. I want to see how people are treated, how my employees interact with those who might be struggling. What I saw today disappointed me deeply." He glanced back at the counter where the saleswoman now looked nervous, having overheard their conversation. "But more importantly," Thomas said, focusing back on Margaret, "I saw someone who reminded me of myself. Someone who deserves dignity and respect, regardless of what's in their bank account." Margaret wiped her eyes. "My husband passed away 8 months ago. I'm still learning to manage everything alone. Some days I feel so lost." "I understand that feeling more than you know," Thomas said gently. "My daughter felt the same way when her mother and I divorced. She was young, scared, and I couldn't always be there for her because I was working 3 jobs trying to survive." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "This has my personal number. If you ever need advice about finances, managing accounts, anything at all, please call me. No strings attached. Sometimes we all just need someone who understands." Margaret took the card with shaking hands. "Why are you being so kind to a complete stranger?" Thomas smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Because someone was kind to me when I needed it most. Because my daughter once stood in a store, humiliated, unable to buy school supplies. Because I remember what it feels like to be invisible, to be judged, to feel worthless. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're not invisible, Margaret. You matter. Your story matters. And that dress you're holding. You're going to look beautiful at your daughter's wedding." "How did you know?" Margaret asked, surprised. "I heard you mention it to the saleswoman earlier," Thomas explained. "I lost my wife to cancer 5 years ago. I know how precious these family moments become. Don't let today's embarrassment steal your joy." Margaret couldn't hold back her tears any longer. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Thomas nodded. "There's just one thing I ask in return." Margaret looked up, worried about what the condition might be. "Someday, when you're able, pass this kindness on to someone else who needs it. It doesn't have to be money. Sometimes a smile, a kind word, or just listening can change someone's entire day." "I promise," Margaret said, her voice strong despite her tears. As Thomas walked away, the store manager approached him, clearly having been informed of the owner's presence. Margaret watched as Thomas spoke to the manager, gesturing toward the saleswoman who had been so rude. Later that evening, Margaret received a phone call. It was from the store manager, apologizing profusely for how she had been treated. The saleswoman had been required to attend customer service training, and the store was implementing new policies about treating all customers with dignity and respect. But the call included something else too. Thomas had left instructions that Margaret should receive a store credit, not as charity, but as an apology from the management for failing to uphold their standards of service. Margaret declined the credit but asked if she could speak to Thomas. When he called her back, she told him, "You've already given me more than enough. You gave me back my dignity. You reminded me that kindness still exists in this world." "Then my day was well spent," Thomas replied warmly. 3 weeks later, at her daughter's wedding, Margaret wore the dress with pride. But more importantly, she carried with her a renewed sense of hope and purpose. She began volunteering at a local community center, helping other widows and widowers navigate the practical and emotional challenges of loss. She never forgot Thomas's words or his kindness. And true to her promise, she passed it on, one person at a time, proving that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply recognize the humanity in others. The billionaire's motive had indeed left everyone speechless. It wasn't about money or recognition. It was about remembering where he came from, honoring the kindness shown to him, and creating a ripple effect of compassion that would touch countless lives. In a world that often feels cold and indifferent, Thomas Hendricks had reminded Margaret and everyone who heard her story that we all have the power to change someone's day, and maybe even their life, with a simple act of kindness. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting tales that remind us of the goodness that still exists in humanity. Leave a comment below sharing a time when someone's kindness made a difference in your life. Your story might inspire someone else today.